This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, let's start. Hope it's audible to everyone. Right. So let us see how to provide a custom F4 help. Providing custom F4 help. I'll save it in the local object. Okay, so in ABAP dictionary, that is in ABAP database, what is the T code? SC11. We know that we have one table. Okay, we have one table KN1 which stores what? Customer master data. Okay, customer master data. We have used some fields in that like customer number. Okay, land one, name one, ORT01. Like this, we have used what? Some of the fields. ORT01. Like this, some of the fields we have used. Similarly, we have a table, Mara table. Okay, so again, this is a standard table. So every business contains what? Material. So this table stores material master data. KN1 table stores customer master data. Mara table stores what? Material master data. So if I go to SC11, okay, so let me go to SC11 ABAP dictionary. So in the ABAP dictionary, let me give the database table name as what? Mara. Okay, Mara table stores what? Material master data. Okay, so when I display this particular table, okay, I'm in SC11. Right, so here this table has got some 257 fields. 257 fields. What are the primary key fields in this? There are two primary key fields. One is client, another is what? Material number. In KNM table, KUNR was the primary key field, customer number. Here in the MARA table, MATNR, material number is a what? Primary key field. Okay, and we have some fields like MTRT, material type, MBRSH, industry sector, okay, MATKL, material group, something like this. Okay, so my requirement is, yeah, my requirement is uh, when I execute my program, I should get the selection screen. Okay, on the selection screen, I need to display what? I need to read a material number. Okay, so assume that this should be in what? Block 1. Okay, and then I require another block. Another block I want. Here I want some fields like material type, what? Industry sector, and then material group. Material group. Okay, and then I'll take one button here like get material. So we require what? Two different blocks. Okay, so this is one block, this is another block. Okay, so my selection screen should contain two blocks. So on executing this program, I should get a selection screen which should look something like this. Okay, on this selection screen I want some validations. Okay, what are the validations here? So on the selection screen, by default, block 2 should be what? Invisible. By default, block 2 should be invisible. Okay. Then the next validation is associate custom F4 associate custom F4 for what? Material number. Okay, associate custom F4 for material number. And then here on entering material number and upon click on the button and upon click of the button, what you have to do? Check the material existence and if data available, okay, if data available, display the same in the second block by making them what? Visible. By making them visible. Okay, so this is the validation. Am I clear? So let's see how to do it. So already we have seen how to make what selection scale means visible, invisible. Okay, so here I want input fields. Earlier we have seen it for some check boxes, radio buttons kind of thing. So let's see whether any change is required in case of what input field. So this is the overall requirement. So first of all, let us quickly create the selection screen, which should contain what? Two blocks. Okay, done. So yeah, so what we require here, I require two different blocks. Already we know how to design the blocks. I'll quickly do this. Selection screen, begin of what? Block name, okay, with the frame, title what? T1. Then I'll say selection screen, end of block, selection screen end of block bk1. Okay, done. So as part of this block 1, what I require, I need to read the material number. Material number means which table I have to refer? Mara table. Which field I have to refer? matnr, material number. This is the field which stores the material number. So I can declare a variable either referring to the data element or directly referring to the field itself. So here I'll say, okay, so I'll say selection screen. What? Selection screen. Hmm, selection screen. What? Begin of line. Okay, and selection screen. What? End of line. So I'm creating one line in that. Okay, in that line, let me take first comment. Selection screen comment. I want to start it from sixth position. Let me give some 15 spaces. I'll give the comment variable name as LB1. In the same line, I'll say parameters P underscore MATNR type. Understood? I'm giving the same what field name as that of the database field name. I have to refer to which field? MATNR of which table? Mara table. So I'll say type Mara hyphen MATNR. Okay, so when I execute this, done. No syntax error. This is a warning related to the Mara table. So what is the first event triggered? Initialization event. In the initialization event, I'll say LB1 is equal to, understood, for this variable, I'm associating some text. Let me give the text as what? Something material number. Okay, material number. Done. And the title I'll give it as something T1 is equal to what? I'll just say something input block. So when I execute this, right? So I got a block which contains a material number. Okay, then I want one more block. So I want to give some space. So I'll say selection screen, skip to. I'll design another block. Selection screen, what? Begin of block name I'll give it as BK2 with frame, title I'll give it as something T2. Then I'll say selection screen, end of block, BK2. Okay, so as part of the second block, how many lines I have to construct? Three lines I have to construct. I need to construct what? Three lines. So I'll say selection screen begin of line, and here also I'll say selection screen end of line. Selection screen end of line. So like this, in the second block, I require what? Three lines. So let me create three lines. If you focus on the first line, here I need to read what? Material type. What is the field I have to refer? MTRT. What is the description? Material type. I can refer to the data element or I can refer to the field itself. So here I'll say, first I want a label. So I'll say selection screen, what? Comment. Let me start from sixth position. I'll give 15 spaces width. I'll give a variable name as LB2. Then I'll say parameters P underscore MTRT type Mara hyphen MTART. That is material type. Then in the second line, I need to refer to what? I need to refer to MBRSH, industry sector. In the third line, I need to refer to what? MATKL, material group. This is material type, industry sector, and what? Material group. So let me construct those three lines. So here I'll give LB3. What is the field I need to refer? MBRSH, industry sector. Here also I'll say MBRSH, industry sector. Then here also LB3, this is MATKL, material group. Here also I'll say MATKL. I need to give the label variable values. So in the initialization event, somewhere here I'll say LB2 is equal to what? Material type. LB3 is equal to LB3 is equal to something industry sector. Then LB4 is equal to, I'll say something what? Material group. LB1, this is LB2, LB3, and what? LB4. And title T2, I'll give it as what? Something material data, something like this. Okay, so when I execute this, LB3 is already defined. So let me give it as what? LB4. LB2, LB3, LB4. So when I execute, no errors. Then I got the third block also. Okay, so let me skip only one line here. Then I got the second block. Okay, this is material type, industry sector, and material group. Done. Now I require one button also. No? Somewhere here I want one button. So after this block, okay, after this block, somewhere here I'll say selection screen, skip one. Let me design one block. How to design? Selection screen push button. I want to start the button from 12th position. Let me reserve some 15 spaces. I'll give the button name as B1. I have to give the function code. How to give the function code? User command FC1. So I'm giving the user command FC1. Done. And here I'll say what? B1 is equal to, I'll just give some text get material data. Okay, so when I execute this, no errors. Done. I got the button also. Fine. Okay, so this space is might be not sufficient, so I'll give it as something 12 of something 20. Then I got that. Okay, so we are able to design the block. We are able to design the blocks and button. What is the first validation here? By default, block 2 should be invisible. Means this entire block, should be made what? Invisible. Okay, the entire block should be made invisible. Okay, so what I'll do for that? uh, I have to make all these seven elements as what invisible. Block is one element. These three labels are three elements, and these three input fields. So overall seven elements I need to make what invisible. So what I can do, since I have to apply common property for all these seven elements, I can group them. Somewhere in the last week I told you how to group the selection screen element. So what I'll do, as part of this LB2, I will use addition what modify id. I'll give the modify id as something id1. Here also I'll say modify id what id1, and for label also LB3 also I'll give modify id as what id1. I'm associating same screen group for all these labels and what input fields. Then for this also I'll say modify the id1, and this also modify the id1. So what I did here, I have grouped these six elements into one group. What is that group? What is that group? Uh, Group name is what? ID1. So already we know this. Modified is addition. We have to use to associate the selection screen group. Done. Now the requirement is what? This block should be made invisible by default. By default. So already we know whenever we start the execution, the first event triggered is what? Initialization event. So only for initially only this block should be made invisible, not every time. So what I'll do, the first event triggered is what? Initialization. So in the initialization event, I will write the logic to make that second block as invisible. So instead of writing the logic directly here, I'll write it in a subroutine. So perform, I'll say something invisible block 2. Perform invisible block 2. Let me double click on this. Subroutine does not exist. Create the object. Yes, let me create that in the main program. Continue. Done. So how do we control the appearance of the screen? Already we know during the execution of every program, SAP will provide us one internal table called as what? Screen internal table. We need to iterate that screen internal table and update that screen internal table, which will control the appearance of the screen. So I'll say loop at screen end loop. Okay, loop at screen end loop. What I have to do, already we know about the screen structure. So if you go to SC11, okay, in SC11, if I choose screen, okay, if I choose screen, it's a structure basically. Based on this structure, internal table will be created in every program. So this structure contains one field what? Group one, which you already used. Instead of checking individual names, you can also check with the names, but instead of checking individual names, I can compare with the whole group at once. So I'll say if screen hyphen group 1 is equal to what is the group I gave id1, what I have to do, I have to make that invisible. So I'll say screen hyphen invisible is equal to what? 1. Screen hyphen invisible equal to 1. I have to update the internal table. How do you update? You'll say modify screen, and then you'll say what? End if. So to this group we are having around 6 elements. Okay, so let me check what happens when I execute. Good. So you can see here what happened. The labels, the comments got invisible, but the input fields, they are not made invisible. They are coming in what? Encrypted format. Understood? So earlier in the last 1 week back, I don't know when I discussed, when we are doing it for checkbox block and radio button block and other comment block, this logic is sufficient to make them as what? Invisible. But in case of input fields, apart from setting invisible equal to 1, I need to set one more property, screen hyphen. This screen structure contains one field. What is this? Input. Okay, screen hyphen input is equal to 0. Okay, so let me check whether it will make the input fields also what? Invisible or not. So when I execute, done, it is made what? Invisible. Understood? So this is the additional field needs to be set for what? Input fields. For the rest of the fields, For labels, checkboxes, radio buttons, this is sufficient. It will make that element as invisible. But in case of text field, input field, we need to set invisible equal to 1. Also, input is equal to what? 0. So all this second block group belongs to, all the second block screen elements belong to which group? ID1. So once the entire elements are made invisible, the block also got what? Invisible. Right? So before I continue, any questions, please ask. Okay, done. So if there are no questions, fine. Now what is the requirement here? Requirement is I'll enter what? I'll browse this. Okay, so I'm getting the standard F4 help. When I press F4, I'm getting the standard F4 help. Understood? Why I'm getting the standard F4 help? This material number is referring to which field? Mara hyphen what? MAT NR. So if you see Mara hyphen MAT NR, if you go back to the Mara table, if you see the field MAT NR, this field, what is the data element? MAT NR. If I navigate to the data element level, if I double click on this, at the data element level, if I go to further characteristics, there is some search help attached. There is some search help attached to the data element of that field. Since a search help is attached to the data element of that particular field, we are getting the what? F4 help. Understood? So why we are getting the standard F4 help? Because there is a search help attached at the data element of that particular field. That's why we are getting the standard F4 help. So when I browse this, when I press F4, it is giving the standard F4 help which has got too many fields. We have too many tabs here. So when I click on this, okay, so when I, it will search by what? Material number and material description. So when I continue, it is showing the multiple columns. Okay, understood? So if I click on material by bill, again I'm getting different set of what? Values. Understood? So this is standard F4L given by what? SAP. My requirement is what? I don't want this standard F4L. Okay, I want the custom F4L. Okay, I want the custom F4L. So what you have to do in the last week, already we discussed how to associate a custom F1L. Okay, we have to handle a event called as what? At selection screen on help request. Similarly, on the selection screen, if the user presses F4 key in the input field, SAP will trigger an event. What is that event? At selection screen on value request. At selection screen on value request. I repeat once again. On the selection screen, if the user presses F4 key, SAP triggers a event called as what? At selection screen on value request. So I need to handle that event in order to associate the custom F4L. So what I'll do, already we have handled which event? Initialization event. So somewhere after the initialization event, I'll handle a event called as at selection screen on what? Value request for which field you want the F4L? What is my screen field name? What is the screen field name? P underscore what? MATNR. So for P underscore what? MATNR. Okay, done. Then I want to check whether the event is getting triggered or not. So I'll say message custom F4 help for what? Material number. Okay, type what? I. Custom F4 help for material number, type I. So let me check whether this F4 help is triggered or not. So see now, by default the second block is invisible. I'll press F4 here. Done. What is happening? We are getting that message. And what happened? Automatically the standard F4 help was suppressed. The moment you handle the moment you handle this event, the standard F4 help is suppressed. It is populating the custom F4 help. So what is the understanding? Whenever the user presses F4 key, whenever the user presses F4 key in the selection screen input field, SAP triggers a event called as what? At selection screen on value request. So it is confirmed that the event is getting triggered. Now what I have to do? I need to associate the custom F4 help. Okay, that is a second validation. So let's see how to do it. Okay, so in order to associate custom F4 values, we need to use one function model given by what? SAP. Okay, already I think we have used some function model like VRM underscore set underscore values for associating the drop down values. Then I used one function model pop up to inform to display the dialog box, sorry, to display the dialog box with the text. Okay, now in order to populate custom F4 values, we have a function model. So already we know the T code of SC37. If I go to the function builder, in the function builder we have a function model F4 underscore if underscore int underscore table underscore value underscore request. So now onwards, remember, anywhere if you get custom F4 help requirement, in order to populate the custom F4 values, what is the function model we use? F4 if underscore int underscore table value request. Just like for associating drop down values, we always use the function model VRM underscore set underscore values. Similarly, to associate the custom F4 values, we need to use the function model F4 if int table value request. Okay, so I need to call this particular function model in my program to associate the F4 values. So before we call any function model, we need to check the signature of the function model to understand what parameters you have to pass, what parameters the function model returns, what are the data type of the parameters, whether they are optional parameters or mandatory parameters, all those things. Okay, so let me check the signature. Done. If you go to the signature of this function model, in the import section, you can see there are many parameters. Out of many parameters, you can see in the optional column, the second checkbox is not selected, which means what? That is a mandatory parameter. What is that parameter? RET field is a parameter name. What type of parameter? It is of type D5 field name. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, it is of type what? D5 field name. So by looking at this, I don't know whether it is character, integer, float, date, time. So I need to double click on that and check what is the data type I need to pass. D5 field name, structure name hyphen some field name. So when I double click on this, yes, D5 is the structure. In that there is a field what? Field name. What is the data type of this? Character of 30. Character of 30, which expects what? Field name. What is the description given for that particular mandatory parameter? Name of the return field. Name of the return field itself. So we'll understand what name we have to pass. So I understood that in the import section, there are many parameters. Out of many parameters, there is only one mandatory parameter which I need to pass, which we are what you have to pass? Character value. What character value? It is expecting the name of what? Return field. So what is this return field? You'll understand. Then export, I need not check. Export, I need not check. Okay, let me make it interactive. Syed, why I need not check for export parameters? Syed, hope are you there? Syed, why I need not check for export parameters? Why I need not check for export parameters? Syed, are you there? Hmm. So why I need not check for export parameters? What is the reason? Hmm? Manika, Manika, why I need not check for export parameters? Partha, Latika, Riaz, Chinna, Chinna, are you there? Why I need not check for exporting parameters? Yeah, because we know that in ABAP, exporting parameters are always optional. So if they are always optional, if you are interested, you can import, otherwise we can ignore. That's the reason I need not check for what exporting parameters. Not only here, anywhere in ABAP, export parameters are always optional. If you are interested, we can import, otherwise we can ignore. So if I go to export also, there is a parameter which is having what some single character flag it seems, which doesn't have any effect on our requirement. So I just say simply I can ignore it. Then let me go for changing. Nothing is there in the changing. Let me go for tables. Already we know whatever is there in the tables section, you have to understand that as internal table. I repeat, whatever is there in the tables tab, you have to understand that we have to pass what internal table. So if I go to tables, yes, we have four internal tables. Out of four internal tables, the first one is mandatory. What is this mandatory? Value underscore what tab. Table of what? Values. Table of values. So out of four internal tables, only one internal table is what? Mandatory. So by analyzing this function model, I understand that there is one mandatory importing parameter and mandatory tables parameter. Okay. So whatever is there in the tables, you have to understand that as what internal table. So what I need to do, I need to prepare an internal table containing what? Table of what? Values. I need to prepare a internal table containing table of values. Once the internal table is ready, I can call this particular function model. What this internal table contains? It contains a list of what? F4 values. It contains a list of F4 values. So my requirement is when I press F4, I want to populate some list of F4 values. So we need to collect the requirement, what values you want to populate. We need to collect the requirement from the business, from the customer, from the functional consultant to understand what F4 values you have to pass. Okay, so let's see that. So my requirement is when I press F4 here, it has to show me, it has to show me what material numbers. Okay, it has to show me the material numbers. Okay, these material numbers should belong to some material type. We have filled what MTRT na? We have filled MTRT material type. So if I go to contents, see how many records are there in this table. Number of entries are what? 18,124. I am not interested to see these records. I want to do the filtering based on what? Material type. Material type. What is that field? MTRT. Do we have that field on the selection screen? Yes, we have the field in the selection screen. This is a material type. Here I need to give the material type. So let me browse here. Okay. Suppose I'll choose the material type as something. I'll choose a material type as something. What? FRIP. What is this? Perishables. I'll just choose perishables. Number of entries, how many? 9 are there. Done. Then what else? Let me show you some materials. Okay, like samples. What is this? AEM. How many are there? 44. Okay, done. So FRIP. So what I want, what is this F4 values I want to populate? I want to populate only those materials whose material type is what? FRIP. What is this? Uh, what is that? Perishables. What then? What I want? AEM. That is samples. Let me take other values also. So here FRIP. What else is there? One second. FRIP is perishables. Let me go for spare parts. What is that? ERSA. 45 are there. Okay, done. So I want to populate only these values. What are they? ERSA. ERSA. Okay, so this is my requirement. So here FRIP is what? FRIP is what? Perishable systems. Okay, perishables. What else? AEM. What are the samples? Then ERSA. What was that ERSA? Service. Okay, ERSA is what? Service. Done. Sorry, spare parts. ERSA is what? Spare parts. Sorry. So this is spare part. So this is the only these materials I want to populate. Okay. So I need to prepare an internal table which contains what list of materials whose material type is what FRIP, AEM, and what ERSA. I repeat once again. When I press F4, I have to populate only those F4 values whose material type should be either of these material types. What are they? FRIP, AEM, and what? ERSA. So I need to prepare that internal table. Once the internal table is ready, I can call this particular function model. So what I have to do? Where I have to write the logic? Here only, na? Because when I press F4, what is the event triggered? At selection screen on value request. So I'll just comment this done. So here I need to prepare an internal table. Acha. So in my internal table, when I press F4, it has to show me two columns. What are they? Material number it has to show, and it has to show me the material type. I repeat, it has to show only two columns, material number and material type. So let me prepare an internal table here. So somewhere here, I'll prepare an internal table. Types, okay, begin of types begin of what? Ty underscore f4 values. Ty underscore f4 values. What are the fields you want to show? Material number type. What is the field you have to refer? Mara hyphen matnr. What is the other column you want to show? Material type. Mara hyphen what? Empty ART. Then I'll close the types declaration. End of Ty underscore f4 values. Then I'll say data. I'll declare an internal table T underscore F4 values type table of T1 underscore F4 values. I can give any name. I give the internal table name as T underscore F4 values. So what I'll do when I press F4 in the input field, what is the event triggered at selection screen on value request. So here I'll just say perform get F4 values. I'm just calling one meaningful subroutine get F4 values. Let me double click on this. Subroutine does not exist. Create the object. Yes, I'll choose the main program. Done. Let me get the materials and material type. What are the two fields I want to get? MATNR and what? Empty ART. From which table? From Mara table. Okay, into table. What is the internal table? I declare T underscore F4 values, where I have to get only those materials whose material type in. Yesterday I told you when you're comparing with set of values, you have to use what? In operator. What are the values? FRIP, AEM, and what? ERSA. Okay, so here I'll say FRIP, then what? AEM, and then what? ERSA. Understood? Perishables, samples, and then what? Spare parts. Okay, so I'm getting the data from which table? Why I took internal table? Because we are getting what? Multiple records. I'm not using select single. So how many columns you are retrieving? Two columns. Your target internal table also should contain two columns. Na? Yes, it contains two columns of same type. Na? Mara hyphen MTR and MATNR and Mara hyphen MT. Yeah, so I'm not getting all the 18,000 records. I'm getting only those materials whose material type is either perishable, samples, and what? Spare parts. Done. So after executing the subroutine, control comes back to the next statement. Here I'll say if T underscore F4 values is what? Not initial. If it is not initial, understood? So here I'll just give comment here. Get what? F4 values. If the internal table is not initial means not blank, what I have to do? I have to populate the F4 values. How do you populate the F4 values? Where is the data available now? In this internal table. I need to populate this internal table data as a F4 values. For that, what is the function model you have to use? F4 int table value request, which has got two mandatory parameters. One is return field, and there is what? Internal table. Internal table, anyway, it is ready. Return field means my internal table is going to show how many columns? Two columns, material number and material type. So whether I choose material type or material number, it should return me what? Material number only. And that returned material number should come and sit in this particular field, because you are providing the F4 value for what? Material number field. So you need to return what? Material number only. So return field, I'll give it as what? MATNR. I repeat, my internal table contains two fields. My internal table, which is holding the F4 values, contains what? Two fields, MATNR and what? Empty ART. So when I press F4, it will show both the columns. Irrespective of whichever column value I choose, it should return me only the material number. So return field, I'll give it as what? MATNR. What is the description for of that? Name of what? Return field. We have two fields in the internal table. I have to return one field. Which field I have to return logically here? MATNR, because you are putting the F4 value for what? MATNR. Done. So here I'll say if it is not initial, where we are. If it is not initial, I'll call the function model. I'll go to pattern, control F6. I'll go to pattern. Okay, call function f for if underscore int underscore table underscore value underscore request. Continue. Done. Already we know import becomes what? Export. So these are all commented. So return field equal to my internal table contains two columns. What column you want to return? MATNR. So I'll give the MATNR. Done. And all these are optional. Let me remove them for the time being. Done, 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 done. Yeah. Now, what is the other part? Tables. Tables, while calling, remains what? Tables. Out of four internal tables, one is mandatory. So value underscore tab equal to nothing but what? I need to pass the internal table which is having the values. Table of values. What is the internal table in my case? T underscore what? F4 values. Done. And these are all optional. Exceptions. Better to handle the exceptions. I'll uncomment this. So there is some message here. What is that? If this exception is raised, it is going to set the size of RC value to 1. If this exception is raised, it is going to set the size of RC value to 2. Something like that. Okay, done. So let's see what happens. No syntax error. Done. Okay, no syntax error. Let me check whether I'll get the values or not. Okay, so when I say F8, done, I'll press F4. What is the event triggered? At selection screen on value request. So control will go to that event. In that event, what is the initial step I wrote? I have executed the select statement to get the F4 values from the Mara table, and the data is stored in the internal table. If the internal table is not blank, we are calling the function model which is responsible for populating the internal table values as what? F4 values. So let me press F4. I got a message here. What is the message I got? No values found. So when I press F4, it is saying that no values found. Let me debug and check whether we have values or not. Okay. So what I'll do here is, yeah, I'll put the breakpoint. So in the at selection screen on value request, in at selection screen on value request, I'll put the breakpoint. I'll put the cursor. I'll set what? Session breakpoint. Why I'm debugging only this one? Because whenever I press F4, this is the event triggered. So I'll put the cursor. I'll set the breakpoint. Done. Execute. Say F8. So when I say F8, done. Right. I'll press F4 now. What is the event triggered? At selection screen on value request. So let me press F4. Done. Right. So the control is stopping that event. We are calling the subroutine. Let me press F5. Done. This is the internal table, which is initial as of now before executing the select statement. Now let me press F5. Done. How many records I got? 98 records I got. Yes. Correct only, na? 98 records we got. Okay. Done. So data is available in my internal table. So what is the next step here? If the internal table is not initial, if it is not blank, if it is not empty, yes, it is not empty. What you are doing now? We are trying to call the function model. What this function model has to do? It has to populate this internal table data as what? F4 value, so that the user can select a value and the selected value will come and sit in that particular field. So if I say F5, control jumps to the definition of the function model. So I need not debug this. Let me say F8. What is the message? Got no values found. So what is the meaning? We have the values, but it is not populating those particular values. So what is the meaning? Whatever the parameters you have passed may not be sufficient. So what is the trial I have done? Initially, I passed the data only for what? Mandatory parameters. Initially, I have passed the data only for mandatory parameters. It is not working. So what is the next step you have to do? Go back and check what are the other parameters, what are the other optional parameters that you have to pass so that the requirement is met. Okay, rest of the parameters are what? Optional. Okay, so we need to do the analysis to understand which parameters you have to pass so that our requirement will be satisfied. Okay, so in the import section you can see there are some parameters here. What is this? Dyn program, which is expecting what? Current program name. Dyn PNR, which is expecting the screen number. Dyn pro field, which is expecting the name of what? Screen field. So let me try to pass this. It is under import section. While calling becomes export. It is expecting what? Current program name. Even though it is optional, initially I have not passed, but my requirement is not working. Now let me try to pass and check whether our requirement is met or not. So I'll go to the export section. Here I'll say dyn pprog equal to what I have to pass? Current program name. What is my current program name? Z645 program 43. Instead of hard coding, I can refer to the system field what? Sci rep ID, which refers to what? Current program only. Done. Let me activate this. Sorry. When I execute, done, I'll press F4. No, still I am getting the same message, no values found. So let me try to pass other parameter. What is this? Dyn PNR. What is expecting? Screen number. Dyn PNR is expecting what? Screen number. So let me copy this. Equal to what is the select, we are pressing F4 on the selection screen. What is the selection screen number? Always 1000. Instead of hard coding the value, I'll refer to the system field what? SYDVNR, which refers to the current screen number. Current screen number. In this case, the current screen is what? Selection screen. Always the number is 1000. So let me check whether this combination will work. I'll press F4. No, it is saying what? No values found. This is also not working. So what I'll do, I'll try to pass other parameter. What is that? Dyn pro field. What is this? Name of screen field for value return. Name of screen field for value return. So what is the value we are returning from F4 help? It should come and sit in what screen field? This only, na? What is the name of this screen field in our program? P underscore what? MATNR. So let me try to pass this. Understood? So I'm checking all the combinations. Done. So what is that parameter here? Dynpro field is a parameter. It is under import while calling becomes export. So here I'll say Dynpro field is equal to what? What is the screen field name? P underscore what? MATNR. It's a character one. Understood? It is a character. If I double click on this, it is a character. Okay, since it is character, I have to give it in single quotes. Done. I gave it. Now let me check whether this works or not. When I press F4, no, still I am getting what? No values found. Now what I'll do, I'll comment this. I'll comment this. Let me try to pass other combination. Like suppose in this only, we have a parameter what? Value underscore org. It is of type ddbul underscore d. What is the default value here? C. Means if you don't pass the value, it will take C only. Internally, it will take it as C only if you don't pass the value for this. What is the description here? Value written. What are the possible values? C and what? Yes. C and what? Yes. So internally, anyway, it is passing C because the default value is what? C. Now I'll try to pass the other possible value. What is that? S. S indicates what is structured itself. So let me try to pass value underscore. It is also under import. So value underscore org is equal to what? Equal to what? S. Understood? So I have to do R&D analysis by passing the data for different parameters till your requirement is met. Now let me check it here. Execute this. I'll press F4. Good. I got 98 entries. So this is my material number and this is my material type. What is this? AEM indicates what? Sample. So like this, I can browse this. It is showing all the values. These are all the samples. Then we have spare parts. Then it is showing the values. So whether I choose material number or whether I choose material type, it has to return me the material number only. Suppose I'll choose this one. Here I say this one. What is the corresponding material number? CBM 101. So when I select this, no, I'm not getting. I repeat, when I press F4, I'll choose this. I'm not getting. So I'm able to populate the values, but the selected value is not coming and sitting in the field. So what I'll do, just now we have seen the field what? DynPro field, name of screen field for what? Value written. Means whatever the value you're returning, it should come and sit in some screen field. Na? You need to mention that screen field name. So earlier I commented, let me uncomment now. Done. So when I execute, when I press F4, right? So random, these are all my samples material. Then these are all spare parts, and somewhere at the last we have what? Perishables. Okay, whether I choose material type or material number, it should return me the material number only because the return field I gave it as what? MAT NR. So randomly I'll choose a value, I'll choose this one. I got the data. I got the data. Okay, so now onwards, what you have to remember is wherever you have to populate F4 values, this is the function model you have to use, and these are the minimum parameters you have to pass in order to use this particular function model. Out of these parameters, only this one, return field and value underscore tab, was mandatory. The rest of the parameters are optional. Initially, I have not passed them. When you are not passing that, your requirement is not met. So I tried to pass the data for what? Other parameters. Any questions? Please ask me. So what is that? I repeat once again. Whenever you press F4 key, what is the event triggered? At selection screen on value request. So in that event handling, what I am doing, I am calling a subroutine where I am getting the F4 value. So I am getting the data into the internal table. So why I have to go for internal table? I know that to populate the F4 values, I have to use a function model F4 if in table value request. According to the signature of that particular function model, there are two mandatory parameters. One is import parameter and this is what? Internal table. So before I call this function model, I need to keep the internal table ready with the possible F4 values. So I am retrieving the data from RA table where material type is either perishables or samples or what? Spare parts. Okay, so once I get the data into the internal table, if the internal table is not empty, how do you populate this internal table data as F4 values? I need to use this function model so and so. According to the signature of this function model, there are only two mandatory parameters. One is return field, another is the internal table. Any internal table you have prepared and we have to pass it. Okay, in this internal table, we are populating how many columns, how many fields? Two fields. One is material number, another is what? Material type. So whether I choose material number and material type, I should return only material number. That's why I gave the return field as what? MATNR. This is the name of my internal table field. But if you pass the data only for these two parameters, our requirement was not met. So what I did, I passed the data for other optional parameters. So these are the parameters you have to pass in order to meet your requirement. So anywhere going forward in ABAP, wherever you get the F4 requirement, you try to pass these parameters. Okay, now I'll browse this. I'll choose this AEM. I'll press enter. I don't have the data. Might be I don't have the data for that. No problem. Let me choose randomly again. Might be I don't have data for those materials. Okay, I don't have the data for those materials. So I'll do one thing. Let me slightly change the material number. I'll give ROH also, raw material, so that I may have the data. I'll press F4. Yes, it is showing me many values. Let me randomly choose one of the material, get data. I don't have the data. Hmm? I'm sorry, boss. Sorry, sir. Sorry. I have not written the logic for the button now. When I click on the button, what is the event triggered? At selection screen. Okay, so I need to handle that event. So then only I'll get the data. So what I'll do here, somewhere here, at selection screen, case you understood, whenever we click on selection screen button, what is the event triggered? At selection screen, when what is the function code I give for that button? FC1. Done. So what I'll do, if P underscore MATNR is not initial. If it is not empty, I need to get the data comparing with this material number. Na? So in my table, material number was what? Primary key. Okay, it is primary key. So you'll have only what? You'll have only single record for the each material. So I'll use what? Select single, right? What are the fields you want to get? Anyway, we are entering the material number. I should get what? Material type, industry sector, and material group. And that data should come and sit in the screen fields. Na? So here I'll say select single what? Material type, MBRSH, MATKL into what is the target fields? P underscore what? MTRT, P underscore MBRSH, P underscore MATKL. Okay, where material number, oh, sorry, from Mara table, where material number is equal to the entered material number P underscore MATNR. Okay, I'll say if size bar C is equal to 0. If the select is successfully executed, I'll just give a message material found. Type what? I. Else, I'll just give a message what? Material not found. Material not found. Type what? I. So if any previous data is there, I'll clear them. Clear P underscore what? MTRT, then what? Clear P underscore MBRSH, then clear P underscore MATKL. Done. End for if is what? End if. That's it. Let me save it. Check for the syntax. Incorrectness. Yeah. End for case. You have to close the case also. No. Where is that case? Yeah. Here only. Somewhere here I'll say what? End case. Done. No errors. So let me browse. I'll press F4. I'm getting the F4 values. Let me choose some F4 value randomly. I'll click on the button. Material is found, it seems. Automatically the block is made visible. I got the data. I got the data. Okay, I'll browse this. I'll choose something this one. Click on this. Material is found. Yes, the data is getting changed. I'll browse this. Material is found. Yeah, data is getting changed if you observe. Okay. Material is found. Yes, the data is getting changed. Done. Working fine. Okay, suppose here I'll give uh, I'll give this material number. I got the data. Material is found. Okay, now I'll give A10. Manually I'm giving A10. I don't know whether it is available or not. I'll click on this. Material is not found. I'm clearing the data. Working fine. Okay, I'll give 100-100. Get material data. Material is found. I got the data. Done. Understood. So we are able to what write the logic for all the validations. Done. Requires practice. I think somehow now there is no interaction. Okay, so most of you have not practiced. Start practicing, otherwise it will become difficult going forward. While listening, it looks simple, but we should be able to develop our own objects. That is important. Done. So practice this Tomorrow we'll see what select options and ranges concept. Right? Any questions for today? Please ask me. Right? Chalo then. I'll wind off. We'll continue tomorrow then.